It is fight week. It is fight week. UFC 269 it goes down this Saturday on December the 11th from Las Vegas, Nevada, the T-Mobile Arena. It is the last major UFC pay-per-view event of the year, and the card is absolutely stacked. So let's talk about it. Before we do, my name is Rahul J-Chan. This is the Battle Camp. Thank you very much for joining me. If you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. I don't have time to sit here and talk about every single fight that interests me on this card, so I'm just going to pick out little bits and pieces that I want to address as I go through the card. But there's only one place to start, and that is the main event for the lightweight title between Charles Oliveira, Charlie Olives, and Dustin Poirier. First and foremost, right, with the way Charles Oliveira won the belt against Michael Chandler, it kind of felt like an odd title fight because it was difficult to justify the fact that Michael Chandler was in a title fight off the back of one victory, and that was against Dan Hooker, right? So the fact that that was a fight that crowned the new lightweight champion with the disarray the division was in for the longest time since Khabib decided to retire. It just kind of, I don't know, man. Although I'm here and I totally respect Oliveira's skills and his abilities, and I feel like him being in that fight was justified, the fact that he beat Chandler for the belt, it kind of was a questionable fight to make, right? But given the landscape of what the division was at that time, I don't necessarily blame the UFC for making that fight. Having said all of that, I don't think that anybody would begrudge or argue against the fact that Dustin Poirier is in a title fight. And the fact that he's now fighting Charles Oliveira, whoever comes out of this fight as the champion, I don't feel as though there will be any kind of backlash in terms of saying that isn't the best guy in the division. And if anybody wants to prove otherwise, they need to step in there and beat the man. Does that make sense? Have I made sense in what I'm saying? I hope I have, because I feel like it's a pretty straightforward point that I've tried to make, but I haven't been very concise in the way I've said it. Now, the fight itself, it's funny, right? Because I was actually really excited about this card. And then Leon Edwards and Masvidal dropped off the card. And now this week, I haven't really had that same level of excitement. And another thing that's quite funny is, personally speaking, like, I've watched Dustin Poirier's growth, and I've spoken about this in videos over the last 3-4 years, right? And I am a massive fan of Dustin Poirier as a fighter, and I feel more importantly as a man, as a bloke, right? I feel as though, kind of, from the interviews that I've seen him in, the things that he says, and the actions outside the octagon with the charity work and all of that stuff, especially because you have to remember that I you know, a lot of us have probably watched the documentary that he was in at the start of his career. So from that young kind of, you know, early 20s or late teens, whatever he was in that documentary, to where he is now, the growth is unbelievable. Not just in terms of his skills in the octagon, but as a bloke as well, right? And I feel like I thought that his kind of star had kind of got into that second tier in terms of big names in the sport after his 2 wins against Conor McGregor. Now, I've done no research. I haven't even watched the first embedded video, which was released yesterday. So I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 7th of December, but I'll be posting this on Thursday, the 9th of December. So I hope nothing happens in embedded that I wish I waited for before I recorded this video, if that makes sense. But the point I'm trying to make is, I haven't seen any kind of numbers to say, yep, Dustin Poirier has definitely reached that Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal level of star in the sport. I just assumed that probably would be the case after his two wins against Conor McGregor. But my kind of gut instinct, or my feeling towards Dustin Poirier, it doesn't reflect how I would be feeling in a Nate Diaz fight week or a Jorge Masvidal fight week. And I can't quite put my finger on it because the fight itself and the way these two match up with each other, I'm excited about. But I feel like this fight is missing that kind of je ne sais quoi. And I don't know what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it. But every time I think about... when I think about this fight, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm not excited to see who wins. I don't know if that makes sense, right? Because when I kind of think of, a Jorge Masvidal fight recently, or a Nate Diaz fight, that's kind of my, my initial kind of feeling is I'm excited to see him fight, but I'm also excited to see who wins and how it happens. Whereas with these guys, I'm not really that excited to see who wins. It's just more of I just want to see how this fight plays out. But like, I get the impression that Dustin Poirier is the favorite for this fight. And I don't know whether I concur with that. So please give me 1 second. 1 second. My laptop's going to run out of battery. And then I'm going to have to start doing this again because I need the card in front of me. All right, so we're back. So the fight itself, like I said, I'm very, very intrigued by the fight because I feel like both of these guys have they're quite similar in their experience in what they've experienced as fighters. Both, same 145 pounds and 155 pounds. They've both experienced devastating defeats. They've both experienced big wins. I'm interested to see whether they've had a similar amount of fights with as each other. So 35 fights for Dustin Poirier. Charles Oliveira, probably around the same sort of 40 fights. So they've had a similar amount of fights. They both had years and years and years of experience in the UFC. But I just feel as though Dustin Poirier has more big fight experience. What I mean by that is the 2 Conor McGregor fights. What I mean by that is the fight against Khabib. What I mean by that is the fight against Holloway. What I mean, actually, even the first Conor McGregor fight, because even then, that was a big fight, even though Conor McGregor wasn't quite at the level that he is now, but he was still kind of on the descendancy or ascendancy, whichever the one means going upwards, right? So I feel like that might have a bearing on this fight of being in that position of the main event, standing there in Vegas in front of that sold out crowd against a formidable opponent, looking across the cage. Dustin Poirier just done it more times than Charles Oliveira. So that might, I'm not saying it definitely will, it may have a role to play. And the reason why I say that is because when I think of these two guys fighting, for some reason, I just keep going back to like Dustin Poirier being able to maintain a pace at the end of a fight in the championship rounds. And I don't know whether Charles Oliveira has that kind of juice in him. Because even in the fight against Michael Chandler and Kevin Lee, I believe was also the main event of that card, they didn't go the distance. And that's not a slight on Charles Oliveira, because he finished both of those guys within 3 rounds. So he beat Kevin Lee in the 3rd round and Michael Chandler in the 2nd round. But I don't know whether Charles Oliveira has that gas for the 4th round and the 5th round. So that's something that might play a part in this fight. Having said all of that, there's something like Dustin Poirier is a guy that he's a guy that's almost kind of, his career's inverted in a funny sort of way, because usually you climb the mountain and you become the champion and then the money follows. But recently he's beaten Conor McGregor, and from what he's said in interviews, Dustin Poirier, he's got paid really well, paid in full, man, paid in full. Like he reached the base camp, whatever they call it, of the mountain by becoming the interim champion against Holloway. But I know, you know, we all know he didn't actually feel like the champ after that victory. And then he had that crushing defeat against Khabib, and he's turned his, you know, he's got back on that horse and he's going again. And before he's got to the title, he's taken this detour, and that detour's put him. He's found a treasure chest on the way. And generally speaking, when it comes to MMA and especially the UFC, when you find the money, it's after you've become the champion. And this fight, should he beat Oliveira, that is the crowning moment. That is the cherry on the cake. Like, from his point of view, he's kind of grown as a person. He's giving back to his community. He's got a family. He's gotten better and better as a fighter. He's earned the money that he needs to earn, that he can have a comfortable life. And that's the last piece of the jigsaw. Being able to say that I was also the best in the world. I was champion, paid in full, baby. And like I said, I'm a fan of Dustin Poirier, and I'd be very, very happy to see him realise that goal. And for him to say, mixed martial arts, completed it, mate. Having said all of that, I like Charles Oliveira as well. And maybe that's why I don't really have that kind of feeling of, oh, I can't wait to watch this fight, because part of me doesn't want to see either of these guys lose. And in terms of who I think is going to win this fight, I don't know. But I will hazard a prediction. And this prediction isn't based on technical ability, and it's not based on any knowledge of the sport. It's just an inkling that I have. And for some reason, I keep getting the feeling that Dustin Poirier is going to fall at this hurdle. After all of this last 2 or 3 minutes, me sitting here telling you guys how much I'd love to see Dustin Poirier win, and how nice it will be for him to win and be able to say that he's achieved every goal and ticked every box. I don't know why, I just keep coming back to the feeling that I feel like, you know what it is? With Dustin Poirier facing Conor McGregor, it was almost like a distraction from the rat race that is focusing on the fighters that are at the top of the weight class to become the champion. It was almost a detachment from being the best in the world, fighting Conor McGregor. And I feel like Charlie Oliveira right now is just focused, and like he's just been in this struggle to be the champion, to get there, and now he's there. I feel like he's just got that bit between his teeth to not lose it. Do you know what I mean? Even though I've pointed out a couple of things that might work in Dustin Poirier's favour as I kind of started this video, there's something, I don't know what it is, I can't put my finger on it. There's something inside me that says I feel like Charles Oliveira wins within the distance via a finish. But like I say, I don't know. I'd be equally unsurprised if Dustin Poirier beats Charles Oliveira. One thing that I won't be surprised about is when Amanda Nunes beats Julianna Peña. Now, this is obviously the co-main event. It's for the women's bantamweight title. It's been a while since we've seen Amanda Nunes fight. Let me see the last time she fought and who it was against, because it was against Megan Anderson. I remember that fight back in March. So yeah, it's been a while. And that was for the featherweight title, which obviously is a non-existent division in the UFC. But yeah, she's fighting Julianna Peña. Julianna Peña is actually quite an interesting cat, because when I first kind of came across her was when she was in the Ultimate Fighter, Team Rousey vs Team Tate. When was that? Because I've got her page open here. 2013. Bloody hell, man. And yeah, that was her back in 2013. She was part of that cast of the Ultimate Fighter. Did she win that? I can't remember if she actually won it. Let's have a look. Yeah, she won. She won the Ultimate Fighter. She was the winner of the first ever women's Ultimate Fighter. I don't know if that's an actual fact, but she won that Ultimate Fighter, right? But then she did have a period out with injury, and there was some sort of arrest. I seem to remember there was an arrest in her history and whatnot. The reason why I'm saying all of this is how can I put it? Like, Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko, I wish they were both 115 pounds. Because in the 115 pound weight division, we actually have mixed martial artists when it comes to the ladies. In the 125 pounds and the 135 pound weight divisions, when it comes to women's mixed martial arts, we have women that I'd say are kind of second, third generation mixed martial artists, where they have obvious strengths and obvious weaknesses. And if they're well rounded, they're just below average at everything. Do you know what I mean? And obviously Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko are very good at everything, and they have particular things that they are excellent at. Which means when they come up against the Julianna Peñas of this world, it's very difficult to see how Julianna wins this fight. Like, just kind of contemplating this fight without having watched Julianna Peña fight for a while, if I'm completely honest with you. In my head, it was, okay, well, Julianna's going to have to get this fight to the ground and just almost ground and pound and overpower Amanda Nunes and grind out a victory. And my mate James WhatsApped me the other day, and he, you know, obviously does his research on fights and fighters prior to them fighting in big events. And he said, bloody hell, Julianna Peña's takedown defense is shit. Something along those lines. And I was like, oh, my heart sank. My heart sank, because it was a little bit like, man, you try so hard to find reasons to get excited about fights, because I feel like I owe it to Amanda Nunes and I owe it to Valentina Shevchenko, because I totally appreciate how great they are. But it's not their fault that the rest of the division just aren't on the level that they are. And we end up in these fights that, I mean, you know, it's nobody's to blame, but it's just what it is. Now, one thing that I will say is Julianna Peña's been talking a real good game in the lead up to this fight. I heard her on Ariel Helwani's show. I don't know whether it was months and months ago or recently, in terms of when he moved over back to MMA fighting or whatever. And she got me hyped up. She got me excited to watch this fight. I was like, fucking hell, come on. I wouldn't mind seeing Julianna Peña fight Amanda Nunes. But deep down, I just kind of felt that Amanda Nunes is just too good for her. For Julianna Peña to have any form of success in this fight, Amanda Nunes will have had to severely underestimate her and just have a really, really bad day at the office. And Julianna Peña is going to have one of the best days at the office that she could ever have dreamt of having. I can't see anything other than an Amanda Nunes win. Now, just quickly talking about other fights on this card. Kai Kara France against Cody Garbrandt. Obviously, this is Cody Garbrandt's debut at flyweight. He's cutting down to 125 pounds, according to Cody Garbrandt. He only cut a couple of pounds, a handful of pounds, 3 or 4 pounds, whatever, you know, just a very minimal amount to make bantamweight. So he felt that after his last defeat to Rob Font, that moving down to flyweight was a good choice of his. Now, if you've seen my video where I spoke about Jose Aldo at length, talking about how he deserves the flowers that he got after his performance on Saturday just gone, I spoke about my feelings towards Jose Aldo when he announced that he's moving down to bantamweight. I just thought, oh man, he's got to that point in his career where he where he feels as though changing weight class is going to address the deficiencies he's got as a fighter in comparison to the top guys in his weight class. And Cody Garbrandt, I don't know whether this is where he's at now. I don't know, because Cody Garbrandt is a guy that when he beat Dominick Cruz going like that after Dominick Cruz threw a punch and he matrixed his way out of it, I felt like this guy, Cody Garbrandt, is going to be very, 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 very difficult to beat. And when he fought Dillashaw twice, he didn't lose any of that shine for me, because I was very aware of just how good TJ Dillashaw is. But since then, the defeats that Cody Garbrandt has had, it's been a little bit concerning for me, because Cody Garbrandt doesn't strike me as a guy that's taken his eye off the ball. He doesn't strike me as a guy that doesn't care. But I haven't seen like real obvious improvements or strides he's made in his game. And that defeat against Rob Font was a bit difficult to watch at times. And I don't know whether going down in weight is the answer for Cody Garbrandt. Now, Cody Garbrandt does get his fair share of flack online, but I don't have anything against him. I've always kind of liked him, man. I've always liked the fact that he has his heart on his sleeve. I've always respected, his abilities as a fighter. I don't know, I just feel like he kind of lacks defensively. And one of the things that he kind of had in his favour at bantamweight was he was faster than a lot of guys. Now, going down to 125 pounds, I don't know whether the weight cut is going to compromise the power that he has, because he had the ability to hurt fighters at bantamweight. The way he knocked out Assunção. If he's able to carry that power down with him, generally speaking, fighters are able to do that, right? But the speed, will he be able to take fights where he's able to display his advantages against fighters that are just as fast as him? I don't know. And Kai Kara France is a very, very, very stiff test for Cody Garbrandt, because he is a technical stand-up fighter, and he's not a guy that's just going to go out there and just, like, it feels bad saying this, but he's not a guy that's going to go out there and make the kind of mistakes that Cody Garbrandt has been making in recent fights and just totally neglecting his defense. If I'm not mistaken, this guy, Kai Kara France, comes out of the famous City kickboxing team. And he hasn't had everything his own way in terms of his, run in the UFC. But he has shown that he is a very capable striker. So I'm very, very, very interested to see how this fight plays out and whether this move is a good or bad move for Cody Garbrandt. And we might not necessarily get the answer to that question in this fight, right? We might see that actually, you know what, Cody Garbrandt looks good, but he might come up against someone else where you think to yourself, oh, this was a bit of a mistake, wasn't it? Cody Garbrandt has obviously been getting hit and hurt a lot. Who knows? Like, will his resistance to getting hit, how will that be affected with the weight cut? I don't know, man. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and they will get answered on Saturday night. And the first one is, can he actually make the weight? Do you know what I mean? Can he actually make the weight? And once he does that, the next question will be, how does he look? How does he look as a 125-pound fighter? Sean O'Malley is back against Raulian Paiva. I don't know much about this Raulian Paiva, man. I don't claim to be an expert or a real MMA historian or hipster, but Sean O'Malley's back, man. And actually, you know what? I've made videos in the past sitting here saying, Sean O'Malley, that guy, I just don't understand him. I don't get him. He doesn't really resonate with me. I don't understand why he's a star. But actually, recently, the stuff that he's been saying, talking about why should I fight people that are above the top 15 if the UFC aren't going to pay me accordingly, etc., etc. And I listened to his appearance on the Ariel Helwani show just on yesterday. He was on yesterday, as I nearly fell out of my seat. He's growing on me, man. Sean O'Malley is growing on me. I can understand his point of view, and I appreciate his opinion and his outlook, and fair play. Like, I can't argue with what he's saying. He's built a brand. He's making money outside of the UFC. He's on this contract with the UFC where he gets paid X amount. And if he's not getting substantially paid substantially more than that value per fight, why should he really step up in the level of competition that he's facing? And the UFC have, obviously, they're acknowledging the fact that he is a brand and he has name value by putting him on the pay-per-view card rather than putting him in the prelims and whatnot. But I'm really, really interested to see how this scenario plays out in the new year. I'm interested to see if the UFC re-sign him to a new deal. Which I think will happen personally. I can't really see Sugar Sean O'Malley going across to a different organisation at this stage. I can see the UFC re-signing him. And to be honest, I can see the UFC kind of not... strong-arming is a very, very strong word. Because I can just see the UFC almost kind of giving him an offer, take it or leave it type offer. And if he doesn't take it, I can just see Dana White saying, oh, the kid doesn't want to fight anybody. He's been in the organization for 6 fights, 8 fights, 17 fights. And he refuses to step up. That's not what we do here, man. That's not what we do here, man. And then someone will say to Dana White in the press conference, oh, yeah, but Sean O'Malley says that the reason why he doesn't want to fight anyone in the top 15 is he's not getting paid more to do it. And then Dana White will say, these guys get paid. Trust me, these guys get paid. Next question. That's how that will go, right? But I rate what he's doing. I rate what he stands for. And I have nothing to say about his opponent because, no disrespect, I don't know a lot about him. So I'll refrain from doing so for the sake of it. Another couple of things that kind of spike my interest. Dominick Cruz against Pedro Munhoz. Dominick Cruz is a guy that I have always respected and enjoyed watching and more so listening to be honest, because I find his style of fighting a little bit kind of herky-jerky. There's a lot and nothing going on at the same time. And I struggle to find moments that really, really, really excite me in Dominick Cruz fights. But he's actually... by his standards, he's on a consistent run, right? Because he lost to Henry Cejudo in 2020, and this year, this will be his second fight this year. So in the last 2 years, this will be his third fight. And the way injuries have hindered and caused roadblocks in his career, you know, I feel happy for him. The fact that he's able to get back in there against a decent opponent. I feel like Dominick Cruz beats Pedro Munhoz because I feel like Pedro Munhoz is quite kind of one-dimensional in the way he approaches the stand-up side of mixed martial arts. And I feel like Dominick Cruz will be able to have the type of movement where Pedro Munhoz won't be able to connect as much as Dominick Cruz will be able to connect. And I feel as though Dominick Cruz wins this fight. What else? I'm pretty sure Tai Tuivasa. Yes, Tai Tuivasa from the area, baby. I hope he comes on like Ariel Helwani or something. I want to hear him talk, man. I really like Tai Tuivasa. He really resonates with me in the way he kind of... just the way he kind of carries himself and the way he talks, and he's fighting Augusto Sakai, the Brazilian heavyweight. And this is a step up for Tai Tuivasa, because obviously Tai Tuivasa was on this kind of, he was on a rocket ship when he first joined the UFC, and you know he got put against Arlovsky, and then you know obviously JDS, and then Ivanov, and Sergei Spivak is obviously a name that I don't have a lot of, I don't really remember much about him or know much about him. But then this is kind of like a second phase of his career in the sport or in the organisation, where he went back and he fought Stefan Struve and Harry Hucksucker, Greg Hardy, obviously, guys that weren't, you know, as experienced as the guys that had beaten him. But Sakai is. But Sakai does have holes that Tai Tuivasa can potentially expose on the feet, and that's where Tai Tuivasa obviously is at his most comfortable in the sport. So yeah, I'm looking forward to just seeing him back in the octagon. I don't think I've forgotten anything else. Ryan Hall he's snuck onto that card in the early prelims. He'll be fighting Derek Minner. What else have we got? I think that's it really. But I am looking forward. This is, you know, it's been a while since I've stayed up for a UFC event. In fact, the last time was UFC 268. I don't tend to stay awake for these fight night events. But this Saturday, I'll be up watching this card live because I'm interested. I'm all in, baby. Let me know what you guys think about the things that I've said in this video. Let me know what you guys think about my predictions, if I have made predictions for the fights that I've spoken about. Let me know what your opinions are about the topics that I've discussed. Feel free to comment anything you want within reason below. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. I'll catch you guys after the fights.